My darlings, how are you? Well, I was going to be working on YouTube. I went through all that trouble to ask you all to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm starting this slice of life, the journey of Georgianne Thomas. And I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I need somebody's 12-year-old grandchild to come and tell me what I'm doing wrong. I have the 50 plus subscribers. I have good Wi-Fi. I don't know. I got a good phone. I have a good tablet. Whatever it is you need to have. Great connection. I'm ready. I don't know. So I'm just going to start a little bit with you guys. One of the things I was going to start with is I was born and raised in Gary, Indiana. Gary, Indiana. Yes, that Gary, Indiana. You know, I think about when I came down south to Spelman College. I took a lot for granted about Gary, Indiana. And I guess I want to say to you, whatever your hometown is, to go ahead and claim it. It was always too cold for me. I didn't want to go back after being down here in Atlanta. But, you know, sometimes I wish I had done a little more to help the city, because I think people there now may not, I don't know if they would even, are getting all the good stuff I thought we got. I grew up in the 50s, and we had fun. I had fun growing up because I didn't know any better. I don't know what was going on in Gary that people said, oh, you're from Gary. Some people frown, or they say, oh, you're from Gary with the Michael Jacksons. Well, I didn't know them growing up. I'm a 50s child. I thought Gary was a great place because that's all I knew. You could go to Chicago, which I thought was great, to go over there and do things and visit family and go to the baseball games. My high school was Frayville High School, but I went to Pulaski Elementary School. And you walk to Pulaski, you walk to elementary school. Kids walked back then by themselves. You think about that now. I mean, think about a 5-year-old putting on galoshes. Yes, I said it. You know that snowsuit that's zipped all the way up? Yeah, the snowsuit. You couldn't go to the bathroom. What's that movie where they get all zipped up and then the child has to go to the bathroom? Well, my mother always made sure we went to the bathroom. It was just me. I was the only child for 10 years. So I zipped up the little thing, put the little hat on, put Vaseline on your face, you know, because it would be so cold. Put the scarf around, put your little mittens on, and then off you went to school. And then at lunchtime, off you came back. And I remember crossing Virginia Avenue. I think Virginia Avenue is in Atlanta. But there was a Virginia Street. Somebody from Gary can correct me. It was a lot of cars on that street, but I think we had a patrol lady there. You saw kids walking, and I met Jeanette Smith Shivers. We used to walk to school together. I lived then on 19th and Delaware, and I lived on the state side. Gary was divided, states on one side and your presidents on the other side. You know, you grew up knowing the presidents by order because you went to visit somebody either on Washington, Adams, or Jefferson, Madison, whatever. You went to visit somebody on those streets. So everybody knew what came before and after Grant. I can't remember now. But anyway, you just learned stuff when you were young. I remember wanting to look over there was a dog. And I was a little tyke. And I wanted to see that dog. I could not wait to get big enough, I thought, so I can look over the fence to see the dog. You know how things were so big? And we walked under a pomegranate tree, and you stepped over the pomegranate, and you passed my church, which was Trinity Baptist Church. So you walked from your little neighborhood, you crossed over Virginia. My church was Trinity Baptist Church as a kid. And you walked down to Pulaski School. I stayed in trouble at Pulaski because I talked too much. If Armanice, I know she's still alive, Jeanette is not, that's transition. But my report card used to say, Georgianne talks too much. She talks to Armanice and Jeanette. Well, that meant that Armanice, Jeanette, and Georgianne were smart. That's how I looked at it, because we didn't have anything to do. We didn't have anything to do. we were bored, so I stayed in trouble. My mother was at the school because I was bored. They wanted to skip me, but I guess I look back on it now, my mother didn't let them skip me because she was skipped. I guess she didn't like that part. So I had to stay in my grade and just be in trouble all the time. I love Scooter. I remember in the 4th grade, I had the cutest outfits all the time. I had that whole Spelman thing early because my mother went to Spelman. Everything was cute, you know, match something, always looked nice. But anyway, let's go back to 4th grade. I was performing, always performing. Anyway, 4th grade, I was either doing singing with a little group in front of the class or some kind of presentation. I don't know what it was I was doing, but I remember hearing or having a voice say, you know, that I was going to be an entertainer. I was going to be in entertainment. And I remember hearing all that. I was trying to figure it out. Maybe it was subliminal because my mother and father divorced. My real father played the trombone. I remember as a kid hearing my father play the trombone and going in the bathroom and sitting on the commode seat would be down. And I would sit on the commode and listen to him. I guess the echo or the acoustics now sounded good, the trombone. He would play the trombone. I just loved it. I still have that trombone. I still have that trombone. Something. But anyway, I couldn't understand how I made it this far from then in the 4th grade to I was 77 before I put on my first one-woman show. Thankfully, Dr. Catherine Meeks at the Absalon Center for Racial Healing on Fair Street. No, it's not called Fair Street now in Atlanta. It's called Atlanta Student Movement. But I was 77 and I did it after my 2nd cancer. And I was thinking, wow, look how long. I told my dad that I was going to get his music out and my music out when I was 26. I told him after he had passed away. My father was pushed, or something happened during the Chicago riots when Dr. King was killed. So my father was killed during that time. And I remember saying, Dad, don't worry. Your daughter's going to get your music out. Ha. Life is something, isn't it? Life will take over. You know, you should never let anyone else interrupt whatever dream that is. I have always wanted to sing, always wanted to act, always wanted to do music, and I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I did what you're supposed to do because I was an educated black woman and I needed to teach school. And I don't feel badly about that part, but I think when you hold stuff, you know, I had cancer 3 times. I held in. Nobody ever knew this Georgian. The Georgian that you saw on February the 13th, thank you, Sean Walker, for making me stick to February 13, 2020, because I wanted to do the one-woman show in March of 2020. Well, what happened in March of 2020, everybody? Ha! What happened? We had something called a pandemic, and everybody shut down. So there we were, February 13th. It was date night. It was so many couples there, and I was able to perform that Georgian. That's the Georgian that nobody knew. That's the Georgian that I think Nancy Westmoreland for playing. Oh, I have a new toy. Thank you. Oh, I have it on organ. Wait. Let me put it back on piano. Like it would make a difference. Like I know what I'm doing. I got my little chords. Did I show y'all the other night? You know, I know my chords. Anyway, I'm working on it. Anyway, you know, the authentic person, there are many of you in you, and you were sent here with a purpose. So when you get your purpose all worked out, you know, you need to go ahead and you need to do that. You need to do that. You need to do whatever that is that God told you. When I teach in the classroom, I teach at Clark Atlanta University. I'm an adjunct professor in humanities. I've long since forgotten my fluent French, my fluent Spanish, my fluent, not fluent though, German, Italian, and Portuguese, because I work for Delta Airlines, so you had to have, they didn't have to, but I wanted to have 5 languages. But anyway, you gotta do what, you gotta do you, whatever that you is. When I was in Gary, Indiana, I had no idea that all this was going to happen to me. All I knew is that I wanted to be an entertainer. Let me tell you what happened. The first thing, I said, I'm going to be on TV. And sure enough, they selected me. Somebody remind me, if you were in the 50s, go ask your grandmothers or somebody in the 50s. They selected me and my little group or something from Frable. Maybe we were in the 8th grade. We were going to go to Chicago, which is nearby, of course, to bandstand. Bandstand. Doom, doom, doom. Bandstand. Oh, my God. Can you imagine how I felt? I was going to get to that TV. I was going to be on Bandstand. Somebody was going to discover me on Bandstand. I had enough sense to know that somebody would be looking at the little 12-inch TV, whatever TV that it was you had, and you would see me, the little girl from Gary, Indiana, with the rest of the young people from Gary, Indiana, on Bandstand. What happened? What you think happened? So, it's cold up north, right? It was the worst ice storm that Chicago had seen, or Gary had seen. And you could not travel from Gary to Chicago. It wasn't that far, but it was no traveling. They didn't want anybody on the roads. My mother said I cried. I'm sure that was the beginning of my crying. I cried so hard. My mother said I cried so hard. I remember as a kid crying. How could God do that, I asked. How could he do me like that? Oh, by then by that age, I joined church when I was 9, maybe. Well, maybe I was about 9, yeah. Because I knew the Lord. I did. And I couldn't believe that, what? I'm not going to be on Bandstand? Oh my goodness. It was something. So the journey began in Gary, Indiana. I tell people now that I used to get on the bus to go see my paternal grandparents. And my maternal grandparents lived on Massachusetts on the 1600 block. And my paternal grandparents lived in the 2700 block. So, you know, Georgette, I got old enough to take the bus. And so I would walk to Broadway, because by this time, I was maybe 12 or 13, and we were still on the east side. My mother and stepfather had a house built out in Tollerston on the west side, but I'm talking about, at this point, I was still on the east side, where the states, so I lived on Delaware, all the states were on that side. So I had to go to 27th in Massachusetts. So, and I lived on 19th. So it was too far to walk. So you walk to Broadway, and then you got a bus. And I would catch the bus. I'd get all cleaned up, you know, get on the bus. And I was the last black person always on the bus at the 2700 block, right before the railroad track. And then people will go over in an area called Glen Park. But it wouldn't be anybody else black on the bus but me. And then I would get off the bus and walk to my grandparents' house. So now I'm on Broadway. I had to walk down to Massachusetts. So it wasn't that far. It was Broadway, and then I forget the streets, Connecticut. I don't know how we did it. But anyway, I got to Massachusetts Street. When I look back on it, when I talk about the civil rights, I talk about growing up in the North, growing up in the 50s, growing up, I thought, in just America, you know, growing up human. I grew up human. I grew up American, and I grew up human. I found out later I was neither of those. I was American on paper, and I was human because that's what, my body emitted. That's what my body said. That's what we are on this earth, humans. I found out later that I got off of that bus and there were no other black people on the bus, because when the bus crossed the railroad track, it went to Glen Park. And Glen Park was all white. It was all white. Just not knowing. My mother and father, they did a very good job of just making sure we knew we were Americans. We had a good life. It wasn't a rich life, but we had what we wanted growing up. I say we because I was 10 before my brother was born, and I was 15 when my sister was born. And so by that time we were on the other side. Well, my brother was born on the east side, but by that time my parents, my mother and stepfather had purchased, had a home built from the ground up, and we moved over on Taft Street. You just don't know when you're growing up. So I'm saying to you, as my slice of life tonight, is to embrace that town and that place where you were born. I have a piece. Who lived here? Where did they go? Who lived here? Where did they go? If you go to my site, Who Lived Here? Where Did They Go? I talk about people who lived in places that maybe weren't necessarily beautiful to some people, but it had heart. Gary had heart for me. Delaware had heart for me. I went to the library all the time. When I came down south, I found out my colleagues or my friends who were in the south didn't go to the library. They didn't have a black library, or there was no, I don't even know. I can't even explain it, because you just went to the library. In the summer, they had a reading program. So, Jeanette, Armenice, Regina, I can think of Jeanette and Jeanette, because it was two Jeanette. Jeanette Richardson, Jeanette Smith, Armenice, I forget whom else, Regina Scott. I think we all lived in the same neighborhood. Maybe another child. I apologize for those who may know who it was. But we all went to the library and to see who could read the most books. And Jeanette and I were very competitive. We always wanted to, one of us will always win. We just read. I just love to read. So we read all the time. I didn't know everybody didn't go to the library. And I didn't know they gave us a library, or because we had black and white people in the neighborhood, they had to have a library, or maybe black and white people weren't always in Gary. Maybe it was white people in Gary and then black people showed up. I don't know who lived here. Where did they go? I need to do that research. I feel badly that I don't know enough about my own city, But I do know that I did go to the library. You went to the bakery. There was somebody, you had great pizza. You ate Bolshevik, all kind of foods, because they had so many people in the neighborhood. You had people from Poland. Back then, white people weren't white people like. They all came together. They identified by their heritage. They were Italian, they were Polish, they were German, whatever it was, that's who they were. And they told you that's who they were. So you went to the store or found food. And then it was, of course, it was a huge Jewish community. And then there was a lot of Catholics too. I remember this part. Who lets little kids walk to their grandparents' house? Well, back then you could do that. I walked from 19th in Delaware to 16th in Massachusetts. The only time it was a problem, I was walking one day, and this white man asked me, could he walk with me? And nobody ever told me nobody could walk with me because he was white. Didn't mean anything, because white people were everywhere. They were in the building. They were down the street. They were, I don't know. So he grabbed my hand. I never told this story publicly. He grabbed my hand and walked with me till we got to my grandmother's street. And then I said, my grandmother lives right there. And the people on the street said, Georgianne. They told him, let her go. Georgianne, come this way. And so I knew I had to go that way because my mother you know, told me. So I think I got a lesson after that. I don't know if I walk by myself anymore. My mother walked with me or somebody walked with me till I got old enough to walk by myself again. I was too young to be walking by myself, maybe. But I walked to kindergarten. Did I tell you we came home with lunch at kindergarten? Matter of fact, all of first grade, second, third, every grade, you came home with lunch. That would assume that somebody had to be home at lunch. Think about that. Kids came home at lunchtime. Who was home? I don't know. My mother was always there. I didn't go where I came home. I don't know. It's amazing, isn't it? The little things. Well, anyway. Love the life you have. Listen to God. Don't give up. I was 77 before I got to my first one-woman show, and I'm very proud of it. I was 80 when I'm still 80. I released my, you know, we talk about trying to do this. I don't know. Anyway, I released my first album at 80. I told my dad, I said, Dad, I'm not leaving here. I'm not leaving here. We're going to get some music out. And I have all his music I'm going to give to Morehouse. I have Mara Pierce and oh, Lord, I forgot that child's name. And I know her name. I'll come back and tell you. 2 students at Clark, Atlanta have been putting all the music together for me. And one of the professors putting all my dad's music together for me so that we can, so I want to get it in a book and give it to Morehouse. I'm trying to get it all copywritten, you know, and my own music. You know, I did learn how to play one of my songs, Something Happened Today. That's the song I haven't, what's the word? I haven't recorded yet. But if you go to Alexa, if you have Alexa, just say Georgianne Thomas and you'll hear my songs. I would like, you know, you may know somebody. I would like for Can't We Be Friends to be sung by Cheryl Lee Ralph for the Abbott Elementary. Listen to Can't We Be Friends. It's perfect. Perfect. All I need is somebody out there is a manager. Go ahead and get that money and give me my money and you get your money and we go on from there. Can't We Be Friends? Cheryl Lee Ralph. She needs to sing that song. Or I can sing it with Bonnie Raitt. I think I want to sing it with Bonnie Raitt. Or I think Mary J. Blige could sing Can't We Be Friends. Then listen to Say That You Will. I think that's Montel. Jordan needs a good song. And I think that's a good one for him. I got some songs I think people should sing. I want to be like Dolly Parton. You know, you just put the music out there and let other people sing it. All right, well, my slice of life tonight is to be proud of where you came from, wherever that is. Take a picture of it, put a rock by it, identify it, know it, feel it, smell it, love it. Because that's your beginning. You got to remember your beginning to know how you're going to get to the other side. Love you. Slice of life. Love you.